Time now to talk politics. Joining me are Janelle Lilley, the lead Capitol reporter for KATV, Michael Tilley from the City Wire, and an author, Bill Scoop Lancaster, former Senate Chief of Staff, and he's got a new book out called Inside the Arkansas Legislature. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you.
Good to see you.
Bill, I'm going to let you go first since you are Scoop and you got this new book out. Tell me a little bit about what's in it and where people can get it.
Well, it's my third book. It's called Inside the Arkansas Legislature. I had a great book signing yesterday at Wordsworth Bookstore in Little Rock. They have the book. It's available on nationwide on all the websites, Amazon, all Barnes & Noble, all the biggies.
And it's full of stories from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s of all of these political legends, scoundrels and heroes in it.
It is. It covers a lot of that ground that I started there in October 1978 in the House and became the Senate's first Chief of Staff in 1985. A young senator named Mike Beebe and I talked late one night, and he convinced me to come over there and set them up their first permanent staff. Yep. And it went from there.
There's lots of good stories in it. I've read it, and it's definitely worth a read. You were covering the state capitol back in a little bit of that time period. You were, Michael?
Yes, for a year, a little over a year.
You didn't make the cut in the book, I hate to tell you.
So. Well, that's good. I think that's probably a good thing.
What were you doing in this time span?
In the 70s?
Well, no, in the 80s and 90s too.
I was in elementary school.
You're going to be writing the next book like this, so that's what I'm counting on here. All right, let's talk about some current events that are going on in Arkansas politics now. Really, I think one of the biggest stories of the week is Chief Justice Jim Hanna of the Arkansas Supreme Court stepping down at the end of August. A big surprise announcement. He's got a medical condition. Janelle, what's been some of the repercussions of this?
You know, honestly, a lot of people are wondering how that's going to affect the dynamics on the court. The court is an interesting makeup right now in and of itself. So having the loss of a Chief Justice who is very involved in, if you go in there and you sit through those court cases, he's active participant in them, and having him step down, it'll be interesting to see how that affects the court cases going before the court in the coming year.
Governor Hutchinson gets to appoint a replacement, but they can't run for the post.
Right, and speaking of running, I think it's going to shape up for an interesting election. We may learn some interesting things about some of the candidates. It's not going to be a pleasant judicial election, maybe not. So.
It could be. Right. Well, I think it's going to add to some of the fun for the 2016 race there, because I do think there'll be a big dynamic there.
As if it wasn't going to be fun already.
Exactly. I will go ahead and throw the name out there. Everybody's talking about his Associate Justice, Courtney Goodson, has been considered a potential person to run for this. I talked to some sources this week that got
You're going to mention the poll.
A poll, yes, that came out. Well, it didn't come out this week, but there was a poll conducted this week with about 20 minutes worth of questions on Courtney Goodson. So
I think we're going to learn a lot about her.
It'll either be opposition research for a potential candidate, or
I think you're going to see a lot more politics involved in these judicial races from now on.
Unfortunately.
It's the world we live in.
It's unfortunate.
And honestly, you have to get your name out there. I mean, it's the media are more broad-based, and it's just, the world we live in now, it's different than the way it was when Judge Hanna and his predecessors ran.
Yeah, well, I do think it's going to add to the dynamics of next year in a fun way. So Godspeed to Justice Hanna, though. I mean, I think we all know him and respect him very much, and wish him a hopeful recovery and a speedy recovery there. Another big resignation this week, Conner Eldridge, the U.S. Attorney up in your neck of the woods, Mr. Tilley.
Yeah, well, it was not a surprise that but I was surprised he resigned so early.
But not with the primary so early.
Well, that's true, but I guess I hadn't thought about that. But I was somewhat surprised. But if he does run for the U.S. Senate, he'll have a good background. His district is a 34-county district in western Arkansas. He's been in the job 5 years. He's built a lot of relationships in those districts. His background in Arkansas political circles before that was pretty broad. But all that being said, what an uphill climb it's going to be to beat Bozeman.
An uphill climb to take on a man who I don't think makes many ripples in the pond to begin with. And
Senator
he's
Bozeman.
Perceived as a nice guy. So I wish Mr. Eldridge all the best, but I don't see the way things are shaping up in Arkansas as that being, I don't know, a worthwhile challenge right now.
I mean, but not undefeatable. I mean, what your polling suggests that Governor Beebe has a really great shot. Not that the former governor would run for that office, but the polling suggests that Bozeman does have the ability to be challenged.
Yeah.
And so
about a third of the population doesn't have an opinion of John Bozeman one way or the other, although I think with $1 million of ads and an R after his name,
absolutely. It's
going
to be an uphill battle either way, but I really feel like it's not a surprise that Eldridge is throwing his name into the hat. And it's not surprising that he's really even doing it this early, because he's going to, by the time November rolls around, you've got the March primary. You're in the thick of it already,
Gotta
really.
raise money. Yeah, I talked to a GOP strategist this week, too, that told me he thought it was a good race for Conner Eldridge because even if he loses, he wins. I mean, you get to build a political base if you run a good campaign, and you could set yourself up for something in the future. Not that he couldn't also win by winning, but
Well, it's not like he's going to be unable to pay his bills if he doesn't win the next.
Right, he's pretty financially
I'm,
well
I'm
out there.
amazed that people still consider that a good thing, though. I never understood that. Like, let's get out there and run you, and you're going to lose, but it's going to be a great thing.
Hey, Mike Huckabee, 1992, ran for the U.S. Senate against Dale Bumpers, lost. 1993 as lieutenant governor. 3 years later, what?
Sympathy.
Governor of the state of Arkansas.
Sympathy.
Hey,
You
come
come
on.
back. Well, I'm talking about it's a sympathy vote, more or less, to say, well, I'll go into the voting booth. I voted against this guy last time, so I'm going to vote for him this time.
I think it has a lot to do with name recognition,
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
All right, one more question before we get to take a quick break here. State executions back on track after almost a 10-year hiatus. How soon do you think we might see a restart?
It's hard to even guess on that, because you're talking about appeals, you're talking about lawsuits that are going to be filed. I think what is most interesting is that this is the direct effect of legislation that was passed this past year, keeping secret the names of drug manufacturers who are going to sell those drugs to the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, Michael Tilley is not real at peace with that. So.
Well, I'm surprised we have an element of how we execute people that is now not transparent. That seems problematic.
You actually covered some executions before from your reporter days, Bill.
Yeah, I was at the Gazette a long time ago in Pine Bluff Commercial. I remember as a child the lights dimming, when they'd crank up the electric chair. And as a Gazette reporter, I was down there one time and we had a tour, and I actually sat in the old electric chair down there. I think they call it Old Sparky. Mm-hmm. But, it's just, I don't know, it's not a pleasant thing to talk about, executions, but maybe they'll figure out if there is a proper way to execute someone.
We'll see if it maybe sparks the debate back up again, too. All right, we've got to take a quick commercial break, and then our panelists are going to come back and give us a prediction either from the world of politics. I might let a business one slide in there, too. We're back after this. All right, welcome back. I'm with Lilley, Tilley, and Billy. I've got Janelle, Lilley, Michael Tilley, and Bill Lancaster. All right, predictions, guys. We're going to talk about what you see on the horizon out there. Bill, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, I thought about saying that maybe if Trump wins the nomination, he would travel down to Brinkley and put Tommy Robinson on the ticket with him to make it a little more zany or whatever. But I'm going to say that Hillary will stumble a little bit out of the gate. She may lose a primary. But when convention time comes, she will look to the South maybe to balance the ticket, look to San Antonio perhaps with the Castro brothers, and don't be surprised if the name of Mike Beebe surfaces.
All right.
I'm close to Mike. We've had a little talk at a golf outing. It was a good-natured talk, but he's progressive. He's the nation's most popular governor at one time. He is born in poverty, raised on the streets of Detroit. Had a marvelous record, so I can't think of anyone better.
All right, Michael Tilley.
I think somewhat political, but more business. Walmart. We're going to hear some other earnings reports from retailers, and I think we may learn that the consumer is not as confident or as strong as maybe some people think they are, which could play into the political debate about the strength of the overall economy.
All right, I like it. Janelle.
I think we're going to have some more Trump headlines in the future. I think that's about the most solid prediction I can possibly make for you.
Next week, the Health Care Reform Task Force meets up at the state capitol. I am hearing from a lot of sources up there that they are tired of listening. They are ready to start deciding what they're going to do. So I think we may see some sort of reenactment of the old Elvis Presley song, A Little Less Conversation, a little more action, please. All right. Janelle, Lilley, Michael Tilley, Bill Lancaster, thank you all very much. Appreciate you very much. That's all for this week's edition of Talk Business. You can keep up with our daily headlines at talkbusiness.net. I'm Roby Brock. Until next time, take care.